Good evening, brothers, sisters, and gender norm resistors. It's time for another Blender stream. This time going over something kind of basic, but very, very important. With me, your host, Ollamh. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yeah, we're back finally. Yesterday was just a bad day all around. Had to go shopping. Weather was all over the place. It wasn't much better today, but it was a little bit better. Actually got out and, I suppose you could say that I went out and touched grass earlier today. Touched all the grass in the yard. Mostly with a 21-inch blade, but hey, what do you know? I don't think the grass really liked it that much, but it's necessary. Otherwise, the city comes and bitches at us and tries to fine us because we're not keeping our everything properly. So, yeah, that was my day today so far. But today we're going to be talking about texturing in Blender. Now, this is going to probably be kind of a boot camp that's going to cover a few days because there's a lot of things to know and learn about texturing that is important. A lot of people, especially at the beginning, especially early on, a lot of people kind of look at texturing as, oh, well, we're telling Blender what color to make certain parts and everything. And that's kind of true, but there's a whole lot more to it. You actually do want to give visual cues that will tell somebody basically what the 3D object that they cannot touch, what it will feel like. And in the lead up to it and in the thumbnail and everything, I posted a superimposed picture, much like this. This is actually just a simple cube that I've put a bevel modifier on it, shaded it smooth, and then added texturing to it. Various different parts of textures here, there, and whatnot, to really give it an idea of what you're feeling. So instead of like a smooth, rounded edges and stuff like that, you're actually, you can see because of the way the light reflects and bounces off. It's not a smooth surface. It kind of has these very, very subtle, very, very smooth bumps and divots and stuff like that all over it. It's partially see-through, but it's cloudy. It gives you the idea of what it would feel like if you held it in your hands. And one of the more interesting things is that some of the people that I asked about it when I showed it to them, they're like, it gives me the idea that this object is an ice cube. Therefore, not only is it's going to be smooth but bumpy. It's going to be hard, but it also gives the idea that it's going to be cold, even without any like fog, any like mist or water vapor or anything like that coming off of it. It looks like it is going to be cold. And that's what we're going for today. That is what we are kind of pushing towards, is giving the idea, all these visual cues of what an object is going to feel like. So we are going to be going through the Principled BSDF node and kind of looking at the different the different things that you can do with it. Now, just to cover a few things, BSDF means bidirectional scattering distribution function, which, a technical explanation of that is the radiometrical characterization of the scatter of optical radiation from a surface as a function of the angular positions of the incident and scattered beams. Whole lot of words. What the hell does that even mean? Basically, what it means is how does light react to this object? For example, in our ice cube here, it is very, very shiny, so the light reflects perfectly. It doesn't really scatter that much as far as the reflections. You can actually see the exact light, the exact ceiling lights from our environmental texture. But it also scatters the light. It's also has some transmission, so the light kind of goes through it. It has a partial alpha channel blend, so you can see through parts of it. You can like see clear through right here. It has the look of being clear, of being white, but it has an inner blueness to it. And it has, you know, and part of the alpha, part of the see-through part is it's cloudy. It has almost like a cloudiness into it. Now, this particular node in Blender, it's actually kind of interesting. Let's go ahead and get Blender, just pull Blender up here. It's actually kind of interesting because this is actually came about. This is kind of based on Disney's Principled model, also known as the PBR shader, making it compatible with Pixar's RenderMan, Unreal Engine, and stuff like that. Now, texturing is such a major part of everything that Adobe has actually recently released a program that is insanely priced. Like, it costs almost as much as the full Creative Cloud per month, which is just fucking insane to me. But that is all it does, is it is just there for doing texturing. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add in 3 different things. We're gonna add in a quad sphere. Now, if you could hit Shift A to add something and quad sphere doesn't come up, I just remembered, let's turn on screencast keys. If that doesn't come up, you need to come up to Edit, come down to Preferences, come to Add-ons, and I think it's Extra, yes, it's Extra Objects. So you can add extra mesh objects, extra curve objects, and stuff like that. And then when you hit Shift A, you have tons of different stuff. You have quad spheres, you have discombobulators, geometric dome, all kinds of stuff. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and size that down. We're gonna move that down, and we're gonna move it over. Now we're gonna add. Now we're gonna hit Shift A to add in a cube. We're again gonna size that down. I want it to be about the same as everything, so we're gonna size it down to about 0.4. So we take this. If you click and hold, if you drag from one field to another, you can affect all of them. So that is down on a -1. And we're going to say -3, just to make everything really nice and even. So -1, boom. Now we're also going to add in a monkey head, or a Suzanne head, I guess it's technically called. I'm going to move you down to a -1. Not -Z, -1. There we go. So, boom. Now some of this, we're going to go ahead and apply the scale on all of these. Because on the cube, we're going to go ahead and do a really quick bevel of 0.2. We're going to do 24. Well, maybe we'll do, what's 0.05? 0.05 looks good. Okay, we're going to do 0.05. And we're going to go ahead and apply that right away. You know what? Let's scale you up so that you're about the same size. Let's scale everything up. Now with Suzanne, we can't just add a bevel modifier to make her look really good. We're going to actually add a subdivision surface modifier, and we're going to go ahead and bump that up to 3 to get a lot of really good geometry, make it look smooth and looks good. Now we're going to take all of these. We're going to hit Control D to duplicate. Or no, Shift D. Sorry, Shift D to duplicate. In the wrong program. And we're just going to affect it on the Z. We're going to move it up. And we're going to move it over on the X a little bit so that it's all within the camera view. Because we're going to kind of do comparison. We're going to use this to do some comparisons. So, now we need to widen out this panel a little bit because we are going to say, on this sphere, we're going to make a new material. We're going to take this material, and we're going to just drag it out onto the lower cube and the lower Suzanne. And we're going to come up to this top one. We're going to say a new material, so material 0.001. We're going to drag it to the top cube. We're going to drag it to the top Suzanne. And now we're ready to actually start playing around with the Principled BSDF. Now, the base color, otherwise known as the diffuse. Basically, this is when light hits this object, how does it react with it? If it's pure white, it's going to reflect all of the light from all the light out into the person's eye, into the camera and stuff like that. If it's blue, it's going to absorb all of the blue color and reflect everything else. If we come down here, we can say, okay, well, red, and boom. So that's pretty simple. Seems pretty simple. Now, of course, as we know from stuff that we've done already, you can add in different stuff. Now, one of the things that we're going to do is we are going to add in a noise texture. We're going to go ahead and hit Control T to add in this, and we're going to say we're going to make that as the object. We're going to add in our friend the color ramp. We're going to take it from the factor down to the factor, and from the color, we're going to say, well, we're going to take, first things first, we're going to take the white. We're going to hover over the white, hit E for eyedropper, and we're going to make it red. So now if we put that in there, you see now we're starting to get that noise texture is affecting the color. If we bring up the dark, it's going to darken, it's going to spread out the dark points. If we bring in the red, it's going to really strengthen the red points. And the reason why we bring it from the texture coordinates from the object is so that, especially with Suzanne here, something I just thought of is we need to do auto shading on the cube and Suzanne just to make them look really super smooth. So if we come here and we say generated should still hold everything together so it's smooth and everything. If we go with UV, well, we're starting to get lines where the planes don't necessarily line up with the UV mapping. Now we could do a UV unwrap and that might kind of do it, but if you're doing procedural texturing, it's better to go with just the object. That is going to take the properties of the object and it's going to keep everything the same. All the islands, are just, it's procedurally done, so it's going to look better. Now, if we come up here and I want to say, copy this to that, but I want this as a blue. We're going to plug that blue into there. Now, if we take this black and we say pump it up to a white, well, that's going to change it drastically. So now we have kind of a white puffiness across everything instead of the black darkness. So that's some of the stuff that you can do with the base color. Base color is pretty powerful, but it doesn't really do much other than show you what the color of something is, which it's a good start, but there's so much more to texturing than just color. So we're actually going to take the color off, And we're going to step down to our subsurface. Now, subsurface is kind of weird. So we're actually going to take this and we're just going to say make them both red so that they're all both the same. So subsurface, if we say up this to 0.25. Well, now all of a sudden it's kind of pink, but it's not really, we're not really sure why. So what we need to do is we need to add in a light, a point light, and what we're going to do is we're going to say bring you up here, say bring you back here. We're going to put this one behind the ear. And we're going to put this one here. Now if we say take all of these, Shift D, duplicate on the X, or on the Z, grab on the X. So we still really can't see much of a difference as far as everything right now, until we click into our shading view so that we're actually seeing the light. And now you see what the subsurface scattering is really doing. So the subsurface is allowing light to show beneath the surface and into that lighting. And this is very important for skin. You know, if you hold your hand up to a very strong light, you'll see some of the light kind of pass through the edge of your skin. If you hold a light behind your ear, you're going to see, much like this, you're going to see a lot of light come through. Subsurface radius is a whole other thing that we might talk about later. Now, subsurface coloring is important because this tells you what color that subsurface is. So the surface is red, but below the surface is what? If we bring it to kind of a almost skin tone type pink, well, we're not seeing much unless we come in here and we say let's grab all of our lights, let's grab them on the Y, and we're going to move it right on into there. So we're really seeing a lot of that, a lot of light through there. Now, if we say increase the saturation, if we increase the saturation all the way, we're going to see now it's really kind of showing this yellowish color. It's also showing yellowish color around these thinner parts of the skin, of the surface. Basically, where the environmental light is hitting it it's scattering that light. If we crank it up, you're going to get more. If we take it to 0.1, you're going to get a lot less. So all of a sudden, it's only on the very, very thin edges and where a strong light is shining through. And of course, if we come down to, if we do a head-on view, we can see really well what's going on here. We can even see that it's kind of shining through a little bit just with the environmental lights. And of course, if we come down to our monkey head that doesn't have it, we don't see anything. And so you see a little bit of it on the cube. Basically, that's just where the light is hitting at an angle. It's shining through and showing the subsurface coloring. Now on the sphere, that's a little bit different. Well, partially because it's actually inside. Let's see, if we grab that on the X and we bring it over to this edge, and we bring it really up and in, we can really kind of see it scattering a bit further. If we look at this edge, we're really seeing kind of that light shining through. So subsurface scattering can be very beneficial if you want to add like a hint of color to it that isn't necessarily like a main primary color. Like if it's dark, You don't want that you don't want that color to show. If it's bright, you want that color to show. That'll really show it off if we say take our environmental light down to a 0. You can really see how that light is shining through. Now it's shining through as green because it's adding, it's a little weird. It's a little weird and it's kind of quirky how to get it set up. So let's bring up that back up. And we're gonna go ahead and take our subsurface down to 0. Now subsurface IOR, or index of refraction. That is something we'll circle back to that one because we actually have just a regular IOR or index of refraction down below. Same with subsurface anisotropy. Anisotropy? I don't know. I don't think I've ever actually heard that word said. So that is again something that we'll deal with we'll circle back to because again we have that down below as well. So next we have metallic, which is what it sounds like. It's how metallic is something. So if we really crank up the metallic on this top one, but not the bottom one. So now you see how the top one actually kind of has this look of being metallic. This is something that is generally used it's either a 1 or a 0. Very rarely do you have something that's like a material that's like it's half metallic. Now I suppose if you say 0.5, that might work for like being plasticky. But again, it's one of those things where it's like it's really generally used either full on or 0. So it's going to affect how the roughness works as well. So we'll kind of come back. We'll come back to that when we start mixing and matching stuff. Now, specular is. Hang on a moment. Let me pull up the official definition of what specular does. Specular is the amount of dielectric specular reflection. Specifies facing along the normals or which way the face is facing. It specifies reflectivity in the most common 0 to 8% range. Now, this is, you can compute what the specular range should be. What should your specular range be? So, for example, the specific calculation is specular equals the image of refraction, or index of refraction minus 1 divided by the index of refraction plus 1 squared divided by 0.08. Big whole huge thing. And again, it requires us to know the index of refraction. But for example, water is a 1.33 index of refraction, so it would be 0.25 on the specular range. On the specular. So if you look at the two, it's definitely kind of changed. It's definitely changed just having our specular changes how it's reflecting. It's reflecting more of a more specifically, and not like softening the reflection. A glass is a 0.5, which is where we started, and a diamond is actually would have a specular rating of 2.15. So that is really just kind of like it's reflecting a lot more lighting. And stuff like that. And then specular tint is what tint that specular map is. So for example, with 0, it is reflecting white, it's reflecting clear. But if we crank that all the way up, it's picking up the red tint. So we're going to go ahead and change it back to 0.5 because now we're going down to roughness. And roughness is very, very plainly put, roughness is how much, to quote the Blender log here, specifies microfacet roughness of the surface for diffuse and specular reflections. Basically, it's how reflective is this. So, for example, if we go a pure roughness of 1, it's not really reflecting anything, it's just giving off a straight color. If we bring the roughness down to 0, it is reflecting perfectly, and it looks like it is like a really, really shiny plastic. Now, of course, if we combine this with our metallic, so if we say perfectly metallic, perfectly shiny, it looks like red chrome. It looks like perfectly red chrome. As it, on the curves of the monkey head, it's kind of like changing it around. If we come over to here, the bevel is changing because it's reflecting different aspect of things. The sphere is, well, it's reflecting a perfect sphere. Interesting point. If you go from a top-down view on the sphere, you will have what is generally known as a garden viewer. So if you look here, you can see the ground of our environmental texture. You can see all the way around it, and and then you see the ceiling. This is actually something that they used to use, that a lot of gardens used to have, is they would have what they called a garden viewer in a specific spot, so that if you look down, you could see the entire garden. You could see all of the plants, all of the flowers and stuff around. If we go ahead and just real quick take the saturation down to 0, now you're getting like a perfect view of everything. You have a perfect, proper view of it. Again, with the saturation up, now you have a red view of it. Just a fun little facts. Fun little facts. Now we're going to turn our point lights off because we don't really need them right now. So, of course, you can change, and then, again, combine. This is more into the combining of stuff, but if you increase the roughness a bit, now you have kind of a roughened, unpolished metal. And stuff like that. So, let's turn our metallic down. Now, with the roughness, if we turn down the roughness, we have perfectly plasticky looking stuff. If we turn down the specular, we're actually cutting down the reflection as well. If we turn it way up, it's actually reflecting a bit more. The color isn't affecting it as much. So if you look like right here, this ceiling light, you can see a halo around the light. Whereas if we change it to 0.5, it's much lessened. If we change that down really far, it has less of a halo around it. So now we're on to the anisotropic, this thing, this A thing. Basically, it's used for specular reflections. It's really used a lot in conjunction with metallic. So let's ramp up the metallic. We're going to go ahead and ramp up the metallic on both of these, so that we can really see what it's doing. And then if we ramp up this, you see how it's elongating the light. It's looking like it's almost looking like it's layered metal. If we bring the roughness down a little bit, you can see really what it's doing as we bring the roughness from 0 up. It is stretching out the lights in rings, or here it's just kind of like, it's just kind of stretching out the light a bit. It's making it a bit more fuzzy. As it gets rougher, so if we say here, but we bring the anisotropy down, now it's not stretching it as much. And the top of this really, really shows it best, because it's, think of it as looking at the bottom of a pan. If you look at the bottom of a perfectly smooth pan, you'll notice that there's rings, sometimes in cups. Well, actually, like the inside of my cup here has what looks like rings, basically. It's the idea of layered metal will have this unique look to it. And then we can actually affect the rotation. So you see how it's rotating around on everything, so we can make it so that it comes, instead of like being doubled up on the monkey head, you see how it's kind of like there's a lot of rings and it's really looking kind of funky. We can adjust that around so that it's more just pinches to a point. At the top, on the sphere, it's literally just rotating it around so that it's in line with that. If you look at the square here, it's now stretching down instead of sideways. It's just a way of basically kind of telling Blender how to stretch the light. Now it does go, from 0 to 1, it's a full circle. So that's basically what to keep in mind. So all right, let's bring it back. Let's bring everything back to normal. Come down here, take the metal off. Now, next is sheen. Sheen is the amount of kind of soft velvet-like reflections near the edges. Used for things like cloth, actually. So if we increase the sheen, let's increase the sheen on the top one here. That doesn't look like anything's really changed that much until we bring the roughness down. Well, even with the roughness up, you can kind of see how it's shining a little bit more on the edges. But if we just say 0.5, and you know what, just for the sake of getting a good comparison, we're going to move these back. So you can see how it's actually shining a bit more. It's actually reflecting more. Even though the roughness is exactly the same, the sheen is giving more of a texture feel. So it would be something like silk. Silk or velvet is very reflective. In a kind of a weird way, it's not like reflective like metal or plastic, and it's the sheen of it. And then sheen tint is, well, it does what it says. It tints the sheen. So see, if we bring it all the way up, it's actually tinting it a bit more red towards the back. Bring it down, it's just tinting more of just a white. Tint at 0.5, and it's kind of just, yeah, it's kind of just there. Next is clear coat, which is essentially an extra layer. Well, it says it here, extra white specular layer on top of the others. This is would be useful for something like car paint. So again, if we say add in the clear coat, well, now it's shining. It is reflecting that light. It's reflecting it perfectly, but it's different from if we say, okay, we're going to say take that one there, and we're going to drop the roughness. So you see how the roughness, it's just red reflecting the light. Whereas the clear coat actually has the light disperses almost like it's going through an extra layer of plastic or literally a clear coat, and it's kind of dispersing through that clear coat before hitting the red paint underneath. So this would be like, you know, like it says, anything that would require a clear coat. So like, you know, pretty much like a lot of plastic, a lot of like fiberglass bodies on cars will have a clear coat. It's a protective coat, but it also does change the light. So with our spheres here, this top sphere would be a red ball, a red fiberglass ball that is painted with a clear coat, whereas this one would just be a regular, perfectly shiny red fiberglass or plastic. And then you can also say clear coat roughness. So if we bring it down, it's gonna disperse less. And as we bring it up, it's roughening it up so it doesn't show as much of the perfectly clear, perfect reflection. So with it all the way up, you can still see where the lights are, but you don't see the exact definition of the lights. So, clear coat, pretty cool. So 0.03, clear coat is 0. Now we're on to index of refraction. The index of refraction is combines with your transmission. So, for example, transmission. So let's talk transmission first. Transmission is literally how much light travels through it. So, and we kind of played around with it with our drapes. Weren't necessarily able to see through our drapes, but if we move our transmission up all the way on this, we can actually see the lights through there. And if we bring in our point light here, and we move this, grab this on the Y, and we move it. If we move it into it, we can see there. We move it through to the other side. You can see how it is. We can see the light being transmitted through it. Now we come to the image. Now transmission roughness is just what it says. If we crank it up, it's going to make it that light transmitting through rougher, so you're not going to see it as much. You're not going to be able to see as much definition. Again, if we take this light and we actually move it into the center of it, so there's a light inside of this cube, and we say increase the roughness. Now it's diffusing the light. Now, image of refraction. Image of refraction is an interesting one. The image of refraction is... Well, that's weird. Telling me that I disconnected from the chat for a bit there. Don't have any dropped frames or anything. So, okay. The index of refraction. Index of refraction. I always want to say image of refraction. It's index of refraction. The index of refraction is basically a numerical value of how much the light is being refracted. And it's I have no idea how to calculate it. So we're going to go ahead and bring in, just go to Google and say index of refraction. So refractive index in optics, refractive index or refraction index is an optical medium of dimensionless number that gives the indication of light bending ability. Now you can actually go to list of refractive indexes. So a vacuum is exactly 1. That is the starting point of that is the starting point of the index of refraction. Is a perfect 1. Air typically is a 0.1000273, almost 1. Now there's certain amounts of gases change a little bit. Not a whole lot. But then you come down to, like, you have liquids, like water is 1.33. So, if we say bring you in, we're going to bring you in. Let's say grab you on the Y. We're going to move you to the center. We're going to bring your transmission all the way up. So now we have two perfectly similar lights. So if we say, what was it? Well, hey, let's just take this. We're going to copy that number. We're going to come in here and we're going to say, paste that to there. So that is normal air. Whereas it's 1.333 for water. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, 1.333 for water. So if we look at it head on, and just for propriety's sake, let's bring that down. So we have air. You can see the exact thing. You can see that exact. You can see that exact light. You know, the corners. It's not refracting it at all with the corners of the bevel or anything like that. Whereas with water, it would. The more concentration of water, the more water that you're looking through, the more it's going to refract the light. Should be kind of a no-duh, because that's how we get rainbows, is the sun going through the water in the air, or the water vapor in the air, adds in the you know, basically makes the rainbow. So we want you guys, so again, we see, you know, it's like the monkey ear. Let's focus on this monkey ear here. So the upper monkey, because has the same as air, it's not refracting anything. But with the water, it is. And like I said, I'm sure there is a massive amount of math to figure out everything. For example, diamond is 2.417. So if we say take you 2.417, now you can really see it's refracting that a lot more. You can actually see it in the monkey head, not just the ear, but in the monkey head as it's shifting that light, and it's kind of bouncing it around, and it's refracting it out certain areas. And again, if we change, hang on here, it told us as far as the specular, 2.15 for a diamond. A diamond's roughness would be pretty high. So now, if we look at this monkey head, this has the similarities of a red diamond, a red colored diamond. It has the exact same image of refraction, so it's kind of like changing everything. That's all the lights that's shining through, the lights from behind, the lights bouncing off the walls, the pillars, the light behind the ear, everything is being refracted through this monkey head as if it were a diamond. Now, the cube is as if a diamond had a light inside of it. And that sphere is as if it were a perfectly spherical diamond. And if we turn off our lights, you can see kind of, you know, you can see the reflections, but you can also kind of see how things are shifting a little bit, and like I said, it's actually really cool. With the right amount of information, you can make something, like I said, you can take a basic shape like the Suzanne head, and you can make it look as if it's made of diamond. So, alright, with that said, we want to say 0, we want to say 1.45. 1.45, transmission 0. We're going to change everything back. We're going to get everything back to the way it was. Now we only have a few little things here. We have emission, which is literally what it sounds like. It is just how much, what color of light it is. So if we say saturation of 1, we say emission strength of 5. So that is literally a glowing, those objects are now glowing red. It's just how much light is is it emitting? Now the emission strength is kind of weird to figure out. It really depends on how you set up your scene. For example, the preview picture that I had of the first bed that I made, I had a lamp there. That is actually like a proper sized light bulb that is emitting at a strength of 60. But it's going through a shade, going through a shade that has a certain amount of transmission and rough transmission and stuff. So it's actually diffusing the light. So if we say, now, one of the interesting things is if we say, actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and keep that. But we're going to say, if we say the emission strength, so now you see how it's actually only emitting in that specific area. Or if we really want it to be very stark and different, we can say, hey, only that, we can plug our noise texture into our emission color. So now only the parts that are showing up as red are going to be emitting light. And then we can crank up the details, crank up the roughness, and all of a sudden we kind of have this almost like lava-like ground texture. If we want to make it more warpy and stuff like that, we can do the distribute, change that. We can change the roughness a bit, so now it almost looks like they're slightly swirling gaseous clouds that are emitting light. Just one of the fun little things that you can do. Of course, you can really twist it up and just go balls out on it. So let's bring our environment back up. Bring everything back to normal. All right. Then we have alpha. Alpha is the simplest way to think of alpha is how much is it there? A lot of people use like alpha masks. Basically, think of it as projecting a movie onto a screen. Where it is white, it will show up perfectly. Where it is black, it won't show up at all. Kind of like a screen. If you have like a sheet of paper that's cut out in the shape of a man, wherever it's white, that's gonna really show the movie that you're projecting onto it. Wherever there's nothing, there's nothing for it to reflect off of. So we can make it kind of like ghostly transparent. And with Suzanne in particular, it kind of looks weird because it doubles up. So it's like where the eyebrow is doubling up, and then it's hitting the skull, and that's adding more to it and more to it and more to it. Now again, we can say if we take this down to up to perfectly white, and we say plug this into the alpha, well, now you have something that is only kind of partially there. And if we want to, we can say bump this up to say, I don't know, 0.2. So now it's kind of see-through, but there's like cloudiness in it. That really adds a lot of detail, a lot of just kind of like we're not quite sure what's going on with it. It almost looks like there is, you know, we bring down our roughness and say increase the scale. Now see, it almost looks like with this that there is kind of like this almost like a cloud. It's filled almost kind of like it's the surfaces are cloudy. There's nothing inside the that. For that, we would actually need to plug things into the volume, which really just screws things up because that's not really a volume thing. However, just out of now, if we take a transparent BSDF, we plug that into there, and we say, hey, you into the volume. That doesn't really work. Okay. That was just kind of quirkiness, kind of quirky playing with it. But now we come down to one that is very important and one that you should never overlook. You should never overlook the normal. The normal, basically the normal is a calculation of which way the faces are facing. So for example, this top face here is the normal is pointing up. The front face is pointing out. This face is pointing towards the monkey. The opposite face is pointing towards the sphere, and so on and so forth. Now the bevels, because we added 24 different layers, we added 24 different breaks, each one is pointing in a slightly different direction. And at the corners, they're broken up even more. That's why topology is so tricky, is because, you know, when you're breaking it down, you're really kind of getting this idea of where things are facing. Now, we can affect that. We can affect that without changing the topology. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, but we need something to transfer that color into a normal value. Into, hey, you know, this is, you know, plus one on the x, you know, plus one on the x is facing towards the monkey. -1 on the x is facing towards the sphere, etc., etc., etc. So if we take our color and we plug this into the height, we take the normal and plug it into the normal, well, now we have a very, very rocky thing. And if we back it out, back the gray out, back the white out, this will do more to give a feel, because that block looks more like it looks like it's stone. It looks like everything is like carved out of stone, because of how it's done, because of the roughness of everything, because of the amount of detail that we have in it, and the amount of roughness, it looks like it's stone. Now, if we back off this roughness, we're going to smooth things out. So now it looks more like it's kind of, well, it looks kind of just really weird, because the scale is a bit too much. So, you know, we can ramp up the scale really high and make it look like it's just kind of like a really lumpy piece of plastic that's just, or maybe like a piece of clay that was just really shoddily done. But if we bring the scale down, like way down, if we bring the scale down to about a 0.45, so now you see, now we start having this really soft stuff. Now, a very important point to note, a very important thing to note. If we say 0.5, So this is literally wherever the 0.5 is perfectly smooth. 0.5 is no in, no out. White is positive. White is moving out, black is moving in. So right now it is smooth except for the points where it's white, and that is moving out. So if we plug that in there, we can see, hey, yeah, the white is kind of moving out a bit, is moving out, and it's smooth. The gray is down at the bottom, and everything, everything between the two is the change. So if we take this and we say bring it down to perfectly black, now it's moving in and out. And we can affect this and make those more severe up to a certain point. If we go too high, it's just gonna be like, okay, hey, here's, it's perfectly flat. So if we really crank it in, well, now it looks like it's a piece of plastic that has basically some divots in it. At this point, we may want to actually crank it up a bit. So now it looks like almost like a concrete block that has some chunks missing out of it. Like it's a concrete block that has some, it was at one time a smooth piece of plastic or a smooth piece of metal or a smooth piece of stone, but now it's got chunks missing out of it. And we can affect the strength and how strong and deep those are by affecting our little strength meter here. So if we crank it down, those are very, those are just very light little chunks out of it. They're not reflecting as much. The deeper it is, the more it's affecting the light. And that's the important thing. That's the other important thing with normals, is this is just affecting how the light is. So if we say, take you down to a black, we say take you up to a white. So those are now sticking out. You can see how, the most of the lighting is from the top, the shadows are on the bottom. You can see that it's sticking out. But if we go to the front view, we can see the shadow a little bit here, but it's not actually affecting the model. It is not actually physically poking out. It is literally just, if we look at it from this angle, we see, oh, hey, yeah, there's bumps and stuff here. But if we look at it from straight on, it's perfectly smooth. Now you can affect the actual material itself, kind of, but it requires a lot more geometry. You have to have a lot more subdivisions. So, all right. So we've gone over all the basics of everything. We've gone through all of these basics. Let's turn off all of our point lights. And now we're going to make basically we're going to use all of the knowledge that we just had to make some various different things. So we're going to take this up, we're going to take the saturation down, so these are going to be perfectly white. But we're going to add in a subsurface of 0.2, and we're going to make the subsurface of it like a let's do 0.2, so it's a little bit bluish on the inside. You know what? Actually, let's go ahead and let's go crazy and go 0.5 for right now. We're gonna go 0.5 for right now. Now, we want to say the index of refraction for ice. We're gonna go as much as we as pure as we can. So let's say index of refraction for ice. Index of refraction for ice is 1.31. All right. So 1.31. Now we're going to want index of refraction here, 1.31. We're going to want transmission because water does transmit, ice does transmit light very well. So now we have perfectly formed cubes, perfectly formed ice. We have a perfectly formed sphere of ice, cube of ice, and for some inscrutable reason, we have a monkey head of pure ice. Like, this is pure ice, perfectly formed, perfectly done, just mwah. Just absolutely beautiful. But we don't want it perfect. I don't want it perfect, at least. Now, reflectiveness, the reflectiveness, let's bring the roughness down to about a 0.16, about 0.15 maybe. 0.15 looks good. So it is ice, but it's not like perfect ice. It is actually turning everything upside down because the index of refraction, at least on Suzanne, that is changing it a little bit, but not too much. Again, these are perfect cubes of ice. Now, we could take it down to glass, which would be, just a 0. But I kind of like the 0.15, so it's a little bit rough. It's not shining perfectly. Maybe we could take down to 0.1 on the roughness. I think 0.1 will be good. And of course, the sphere of ice is reflecting it upside down. That's what ice, a fairly clear piece of ice would do. Now, if we say 0.2, it roughens it up a bit. But we'll get there. We'll get there. So, all right, we want to say, and in order to make it, now we could say, crank this roughness up a lot so that it's not that perfectly clear transmission of light. Now we do want to say, bring that in. We want to bring these back. We want it, let's say 0.75. Say bring you to 0.25. Now that is very, very rough and very, very detailed. We want the roughness needs to be brought down. So let's say 0.5 maybe. 0.5 looks pretty good. It's a little bit rough. It's a little bit, the roughness is a bit much, I think. We don't want it like really hard form. What if we bring that up to a 1? Bring the roughness down to 0.25. So now it's kind of got that look of there is, I think the details are a bit too much. We might have a bit too much of, you know what? Let's go with, if we say ease, now it's a lot smoother. But if we go B-spline, it'll be even smoother. So now we have really nice smooth bits. And we could probably crank that up. 0.5, still too much. 0.25, I like that. I like that. So it does have like this kind of like uneasy, it's not perfect. It's not a perfect shape. Even the sphere is like kind of like, yeah, it's kind of blobby. It's kind of like, the heat hasn't been even all the way around it, so it's kind of starting to melt in weird ways. But we want to take these and we want to hit Control-Shift-D, which will duplicate those with this everything that's connected into them. Very important. Very important. Because we want to say, we want to take this. Now we're going to go ahead and bring you guys forward. And we can hit, I think it's Control, no, Shift. All right. All right. So Shift, right click adds a reroute so that we can, no, I want to say, take this, grab that, so we can move it up here so that we keep our lines straight and easily readable. So what we want to do is we want to take this color, this noise texture, and we want to add that to the roughness. Now I want you to be linear, and I want you a little bit clear. I want you mostly clear. I want a little bit of cloudiness. So if we take away that, we take away our subsurface, we can see really what we're doing here. So we're kind of messing with the transmission roughness a bit. What happens if we do leave that on B-spline? B-spline, it kind of makes it too much. But if we also take this and drop it into the alpha, well, that really needs to be linear, because we need you down to here. We need it below a certain point so that it's not going to be like, oh, hey, it's perfectly clear. This is the best way to add a bit of cloudiness to it. So we want, you know what? I kind of like that. What happens if we bring that up? Well, if we bring it up too much, it's going to kind of make it completely transparent in the back. Now we could bring up the roughness so that it's really kind of more detailed. Bring in the white so that it's about there. So now we're really seeing some cloudiness in it. As you can see, it's kind of transparent in some, it's more transparent in some places, but it's not like, oh, hey, it's invisible. And it is kind of like making that light a little bit weird. So if we take our normal in and we say add some bumpiness to it, we'd say subsurface. We really crank up that subsurface color. And we could also, so let's see here. What was it? Right. The specular. Let's see here. Let's figure out the specular here. So we're gonna open up our little calculator here, and we actually want it to be a scientific. So for that, we want a. All right. Let's see here. What is all of this? Okay, so we want parentheses 1.31 minus 1 into the first parentheses, divided by, open parentheses, 1.31 plus 1, in parentheses, and squared, and divide by 0.08 equals, so the specular should be 0.22511. That is where the specular should be. So, yeah, that's a little... You know what? I'm going to take you guys. I'm going to duplicate you again. And I'm going to change that so that the transmission roughness is oh. Wait, did I have that in I think I had that in Ooh. Okay, so what if we put that in transmission? So now we kind of have this really weird, rough transmission. We take that down to 0.25. What if we take that to 0.5? So we just have a slight hint of blue inside. We have some cloudiness. Make the roughness of it, make the normal of it a bit more rough. And basically from there, it is just a lot of playing with stuff and kind of like, yeah. We take the roughness down. Now we have perfect shine. Which is a lot more realistic for ice. It is really shiny on the outside. It's really just kind of just there. If we say 1.5, maybe make it a bit rougher in some parts. Much rougher. Let's take the one that's in the alpha. You know what? I actually want you to go into the transmission as well, because we kind of want to play with this one. We might want to bring the clarity down a bit. So now it's kind of like there are some points that are perfectly see-through. What happens if we say take this to 0.5? 0.1. So it's never really perfectly clear. It's never really perfectly clear. Again, we're kind of getting it a bit too much on the back end. But that could be actually our refraction. Okay, so that would be like an ice cube. Now, if we say, now here's a point. Here's something that we should be trying. Is let's try and make our background transparent. So now you see how just with that, without actually having anything in the background, you do see how that is just like... That is really just a really nice ice cube. So now we're going to make our upper ones here. I'll bring you guys down a bit. Take away all of our point lights, all the way. So now we're going to make you guys, we're going to make these guys a metallic. So, all right, we want this to be saturation of 0. We want you to be saturation of 0, but we also want value of 0. And we want to add in a bump map. Color into the height. Height into the normal. And we want you down to say 2. We want the details up, way up, but we want the roughness down. And we want you to be really, really smooth. So we're going to really make you smooth. We're going to bring you down to, say, a 0.25, I think. Because what we're going to do is we're actually going to make this maybe 0.3. Well, let's... Because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make this like a really nice, like, slightly beaten metal. So we take this to 5. That looks good, but the strength is way too high. But we can just say, hey, take the strength down to 0.25. So now it just kind of looks a little beaten up. If we take down to 0.1. So 0.1 is, it's just really just a little bit beaten up. It's all just a little beaten up. It's not like, oh hey, there's massive dents in it or anything like that. So with this, we're going to want to make it perfectly metal. We're going to take the roughness down to about 0.25. I don't know. I think that may be still a little too strong on the strength. We take it down to 0.05. 0.05. I like how 0.05 looks. Because 0.05 really kind of just looks like, again, like it's a little bit of beaten metal. Now we want to add in a little bit of the antroscopy, whatever. We'll do 0.3. So it's stretching the light a little bit as the metal. Say subsurface. Subsurface really doesn't affect anything. Affect metal much. We don't have any. We don't have anything like that. Any transmission or anything. I think 0.025 looks good. It's not, again, it's not massive, but it shouldn't be. Maybe we could say 0.3. Oh, 0.03. 0.04. 0.05 might be the best as far as that goes. So it's just kind of like, yeah, it's metal that's been beaten up, it's been tossed around and stuff like that. It's really been just bashed to hell. So if we take a picture, we have kind of a rough, almost painted metal on our upper levels there, and we have ice on the bottom. I like it. So yeah, that is the basics of using the Principled BSDF for making various different materials. Like I said, an understanding, we went through, we really focused on the basics and what each of them does, but understanding what each of them does really you can make drastically different things with just a few little tweaks. with an understanding of what everything does, we were able to make a cube, a sphere, a cube, and a Suzanne head out of ice, as well as beaten metal. That is pretty good. Now, of course, if we really want to go all out, we would say add in area lights, rotate onto the Z, scale you up, grab you on the Y, grab you on the X, say 5, rotate Z. $30, okay. Duplicate you, grab on the X, but nice. 5, grab on the X, -5. So now we're going to set up a 3-point lighting system. So we're going to say 50 for this one. Half for our fill light. And we're going to say grab on the Z, or on the Y. So these are, well, let's go ahead and make them a perfect -8. Let's go ahead and make them a perfect -8. Say use 0. Now we're going to say 8. So 90, -90. And then we're going to say -30. We want it kind of basically shining in about the same. So that should be a really good 3-point lighting. That's with, now that has our environment still affecting it. So if we take that down to a 0, yeah, might need to adjust these a bit. Might need to adjust the strengths a bit. So let's double everything. So 100, 50, 50. Make these 10 meters in size. See, the lights in this are just really, really weird. So say, I want to say these two are 500 each. And this one is 1,000. So now we're going to adjust our environment so that it is just casting a little bit of light. That's looking pretty nice. I do kind of like how that works. I think with this outline light, we might want that a half again. All right, that'll work. That will work for a proof of concept, a proof of what we're doing. Now, tomorrow we're going to talk about even more texturing, but we're going to talk about layering things up using alpha masks, using different properties to create masks, to create grunge, to create edgeware, a whole lot of other more in-depth stuff. This, like I said, this is just very basics of creating the item itself. Now, tomorrow we're going to take like our metal stuff and we're going to create grunge on it. We're going to create rust pockets. We're going to create bits of basically we're going to create like a painted metal where the paint is chipping off and showing the metal through it, adding some rust, adding some roughness along the edges. We might even play around with adding scratches and stuff like that. But I think this will work just fine. So, we're going to come in here and we're going to save. Need to create May. We're going to create 5-2. Gives us May 2nd. And we're going to save that. And that will be up on Twitter, Instagram, the Discord, Tumblr, stuff like that. So yeah, that is the basics of how to create various different things. Like I said, ice is super easy. A lot of people struggle with how to make ice, but it's not that difficult. It really is not that difficult. Metal objects are pretty easy. Again, if it's something that you created, if it's a brand new thing, I find it so much easier to create procedural textures rather than trying to make somebody else's pre-made texture fit your object. It's just a whole lot easier to create something yourself, and it's more satisfying, I think. I mean, that's hey, maybe that's just me, but let's just grab all of these and say auto smooth, just to make sure that everything is smoothed out and looking proper. All right, no real difference. Cool. So yeah, hopefully you guys found it interesting, and this helps you understand how you can different ways to do textures and stuff. The biggest thing, if you're looking for something very, very specific, how to create something very specific, definitely look up tutorials on YouTube. If it's modeling, I would recommend I think it's Kazan. Artisans Evolve is a fantastic channel for modeling. He actually models stuff for 3D printing. Like, he makes his own characters and stuff for Warhammer and stuff like that. Blender Bros is really good as far as learning, kind of the more detailed individual stuff. Kaizen does a lot of good work. There's a lot of really, really quality tutorials out there for very specific stuff. If you one of the biggest things for me is I like playing around with stuff and just trying all kinds of different things, figuring out what works and what doesn't. Because once you figure out how to do something, it is very easy to recreate it, and just, it becomes part of your workflow. With that said, that is where we're going to end for tonight. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit the like button. If you're new here, don't forget to press the subscribe button. If you want to help the channel out, the best way to do it is to share the channel to social media and stuff like that. Share videos that you like, that you found helpful or entertaining. If you want to help us out financially, there are several options down below, such as our merch page, where you can get t-shirts, mug, posters, stickers, stuff like that. There's also our Ko-Fi page and our Patreon page. If you want to be kept up to date when we go live and stuff like that, make sure to ring the bell, but also check out the social media links below, just in case Twitter does, or YouTube doesn't notify you of when we go live. Check out the Facebook page, the Twitter account, the Tumblr account, and the permanent invite for our Discord server, where I always make sure to post when we go live and stuff like that. All that so that you can stay tuned for more from Ollamh Productions. Cheerio!